Our next speaker is somebody who has really propelled a Swiss startup to a whole new height. So for the next 30 minutes, we are going to hear the story of Yokoy. That is a software and AI company founded about 5 years ago in Zurich. It has now expanded to over 7 countries. And one of their most significant achievements was to be backed by Sequoia Capital to the sum of 150 million. Now, I asked Philippe, can you share some of that money? And he replied, or he laughed, it's all gone. And he's probably going to answer where it has all gone to. So let's give a warm welcome to Philippe Sahli.
So, welcome everyone, and thanks a lot for having me. I'm Phil, co-founder and CEO of Yokoy, and I'm just here to give you the humble opinion of a founder, I guess. Not a VC, nothing against VCs, but you really get the humble opinion of a fintech founder out of Zurich. Switzerland is probably not famous for being the most or being the biggest hub for startups or for scale-ups, but we know that if you have a great idea and if you pursue it, the best VCs will find you. And without going through the full story within just a couple of seconds, it's quite important to know that we got Sequoia Capital funding, 1.5 years ago. We did our $80 million Series B round, and we did not really know that Sequoia would even look at us. We know that they don't have an office in Switzerland, not even one close by in Germany or so on. We knew they were quite far away, but still, it was possible to get funding with actually quite a small or quite a short period of time. So to go, let's see if that works. Clicker isn't working, but I'm just talking, I guess. So the really beginning of Yokoy, and I'm not sure if you all know what Yokoy is, but we are a spend management platform, which sounds extremely fancy. Oh, now we're a bit too far. Yes. We're a spend management platform, and spend management is something, I think 5-6 years ago when we started out, the word did not even exist. So the whole story is basically about us starting in a very, very small part and then growing over time into something that was not even there when we started out. But I'm really, really happy that we did so. And until today, I think one of the most important things for any startup, and if you read books and stuff like that, you get a lot of different things you should be doing, you shouldn't be doing, but I think, in my opinion, the most important part of any startup are the founders. And I'm extremely happy to basically, in my opinion, have the best founder team out there possible. You see a picture of 4, we're actually 5 co-founders. Melanie has left us along the way, but still, it was extremely fundamental for us 5 back then to start out Yokoy and to make sure that, we're basically embarking on a journey we had no clue about what it would be or how it would turn out. And we had the weird idea of revolutionizing the way expense management back then was being done. And expense management is something that a lot of other players were also working on expense management. We really did not come up with something new that no one else has ever done before. What we really did is we found one specific target audience that had an issue that was not solved. So most new expense management players, they started 10 years ago, 15 years ago, was already quite new tech, but they all went for the very small companies. Companies with 5 employees, 10 employees, 20 employees, because it's really easy to enter that kind of segment. You have fast sales cycles, they just start using the tool. But when you got to a different segment of companies, so more the mid-sized segment, we realized that they were still doing it on paper. So for us, it was quite clear. There's a big challenge out there, and there's basically no one doing it. And not even in the US, where you would actually expect a lot of companies to be trying out getting into the modern way of expense management for enterprise companies. So we, very naively, I must admit today, we basically said we're going to revolutionize expense management for mid-sized companies. And mid-sized companies, it's always difficult to start with mid-sized companies because mostly you want to start with smaller ones and then kind of like work your way up. But we said this is the target audience and this is the problem. And until today, I'm really happy we did it because it was not one single venture capital company that wanted to give us money. And what we heard a lot was there are already a lot of expense management tools out there. You're not going to make it. And I mean, for all the entrepreneurs in the room, you know that. The not going to make it part is something you hear a lot throughout the journey. But I'm really glad we just started and tried out the first kind of like, the first prototype. Because with that, it was possible for us to pivot. And this is, apart from having the right founders, this is the number one thing that I've learned when going through the last 6 years of building Yokoy. You can pivot. And you probably even have to pivot because the world changes so much that every product idea today might need to be a different one in 2 years, in 5 years, or if you're lucky, in 10 years. So pivoting is not something that people should be scared about, and I was really scared about it. It's really something people should talk about in their daily meetings, in their weekly meetings, especially with their co-founders. Because what we did is expense management, and fortunately, actually, it's not a thing anymore today, because no one wants to have silo solutions anymore. You don't want an expense management solution, a payment solution, an invoice management solution. Today, you want streamlined processes. So that the spend management thing, which actually combines expenses, payments, and invoices, is something that came up it was not invented by us. It was actually invented by another startup. They said, this is going to be the big thing in the future. It's not expense management anymore. It's going to be spend management. And we very early on realized we also think that's going to be the next big thing. So why are we building an expense management solution today if the future is actually in spend management? So we were one of the first ones, then very, very early on, pivoting from expense management to spend management. And I'm really happy we did it because it opens up a very big market for not only for us, but basically for all the players in fintech. And it made sure that we're a completely different company. So a different set of investors is interested in it. A different set of customers is relevant, and even the entire revenue model and all of that is completely different. So pivoting is something that I have learned is one of the key things that can make a company successful over time. And when you look at all the other big companies like Meta, and so they have been pivoting also a lot. I mean, it has not always been successful, and not everything we are doing, or we have been doing or trying out, is successful. But it's certainly something you can set yourself apart. And I'm really, really happy that we did it very early on, because today I can stand here and say we are one of the first spend management companies especially for mid-sized and enterprise-level customers. And we are that because we took a risk very early on to go from a safe haven expense management solution to something nobody knew. And that kind of like brings me to the entire vision. Because if you're the underdog, if you're the startup in the space, especially if you compete in the enterprise segment, then the most important thing, that at least that's what we have learned, is that you have some really, really big vision that everyone in the company you bring behind, and also one of the reasons why you actually would hire new talent. People that join startups, they want to achieve something more than working in a just regular day-to-day job. So the vision of that big spend management part has helped us throughout, I would say, year 2, 3, and 4, to really make sure that we get really good talent, because these were the high growth years that we had, where we in some years even doubled employees, which is always one of the hardest parts, I guess, when the entire growth is happening. So the team and the pivoting, which has basically brought us to the spend management platform, are basically two of the most important learnings we have had at Yokoy. The platform, the product, you've heard it before. If you want to fundraise, what you need is actually a good product. It's actually something people want to put money in, something that also can make money or has the potential to make money. And if you look at the platform, we have underestimated it in the beginning. One of the lucky things is we set very early on a big focus on artificial intelligence, even in the time when there was no ChatGPT back then, but it was certainly the time when it was just coming out. And we realized that it can actually help us solve some of our problems, especially when we went from expense management to spend management. By today, the tech stack is huge and the product is big, but it's one of the things that has helped us to really expand, because not only what I've mentioned already on the verticals, expense, invoice, and pay, but also within the entire customer base. Because we want customers, we have the big goal that customers can spend money over one platform. There are no 2, 3, 4, or 10 tools needed out there anymore. There's just one platform needed for companies to do and to control their entire spend, which is that big, big thing we want to achieve. And the tech stack obviously enables us to make sure that we can do it. And it gives us also that advantage over others, because we have already quite a lot of customers on the Yokoy platform. And the beautiful thing about AI is, if you do it right, you get it to learn on the database. You get it to learn on the data you have to make sure it improves and it gets better. And that's one of the things we didn't really know in the beginning, but we realized very early on that data is, you read it everywhere. Data is the new gold. Everyone wants data. And we've kind of like in the last 2 to 3 years, we realized that data is actually extremely valuable, because with data, we can make stuff others can't. We can make that spend management platform that we have created work better than without having the data and the AI models in there, just to make sure we have that USP, that advantage over others, because software is something that is not creating a USP anymore. Everyone can build software, and building software gets cheaper and faster every day or every week. So with just by having a platform, you are not at all protected against the competition out there in a fast-moving world like today. So kind of by coincidence, by having or by including that AI model as an important fundamental part from the beginning, we started to build the USP. And USPs obviously are extremely important in fundraising as well. Any investor would want to put money into a company that cannot just easily be copied. And it has, I mean, we realized it over time as well. We had no idea, but when we realized it, we created a completely independent data team, AI team, that is driving forward that USP, because it's not only for fundraising. Fundraising is just one thing in a startup or scale-up life, but it's mostly for the customers. What we're doing here is to create value, and we're creating value for the customers, which at the end benefits all of us, benefits the investors. So the mindset I had to set in order from the very beginning was that we're not doing it for the investors, we're actually doing it for our customers, because if we're doing it very well for the customers, the investors will be interested anyway. So coming a bit to the later years, I mean, year 4 or 5, which is basically last year and this year, we're obviously not that of a young company, but life gets, at least that's our experience, life gets easier. The most difficult part is certainly the first year, the first customers, the first people to join that big vision, and also the first investors. This is by far what we have realized the most difficult part in, especially now speaking from a fintech scale-up founder perspective in Switzerland. So being kind of in year 5, going into year 6 now, we have an established product. We have an established customer base. We have, basically we are at the stage where scaling becomes extremely important. And before we entered that stage, was 1.5 years ago roughly, I got an email from Sequoia Cold Outreach saying that they would like to talk to me, and I'm not sure, I'm sure you all have the same issue. You have a lot of emails in your inbox, and I really didn't see it for a couple of days. So when I actually scrolled to the Sequoia email and saw that they actually want to talk to me, I kind of freaked out and I called them immediately. And we had a call, and what I realized is for them, spend management was one of the next big things they have identified. And they want to not only find the perfect player or the winning player in the US, they also want to do the same in other parts of the world. That's why they have set up different offices, one of them being in London. So by basically pivoting from expense management only to spend management, we have gotten the attention of Sequoia back then. We just finished Series A, so we were really not in fundraising mood. If you have fundraised, you know how it is. If you have finished one fundraising, you need a little bit of a break. You want to go back and do actual work for the customers, for the team, not for fundraising only. So we were really not in the mood. We just wanted to go on. But when Sequoia comes and knocks on the door, you kind of like open up. And it was extremely interesting because they only reached out because of spend management, and now suddenly they wanted to know why we're the best spend management tool, and why, this is even more important, why we are the best, why we are the one that is going to win in the end. And it's probably one of the best questions I've gotten from any investor at any time, because it's not only about what you have right now, it's also about what your vision is and what your plan is in executing to get to that vision. And for us, that's when the AI piece came in as well, or came in very handy, because we basically said, or we could say that with AI and the entire data we have a big advantage over other companies that are software first, that don't make that entire investment into AI, which we started very early on. And by having those kind of pieces, we got the interest, and at the end, for whatever reason, they chose us. So we're also a bit surprised, but we're extremely happy about that. And with money and with good investors that have a great network, life gets easier again. So kind of the story goes on, but you get more support. You're not alone there anymore, going out and trying to find that big next thing. It is really about teamwork by then, because you have quite a professional board, or you'll make your board quite professional. And from there onwards or downwards, you make sure that the company or the startup actually becomes more of a machine that runs and can start scaling. And scaling is kind of like what brings me now to year 4 or 5, so last year and this year. A startup that is extremely successful pre-scaling does not have to be successful post-scaling. And I mean, you all know, but there is no magic recipe that gets you from that hugely successful startup into a hugely successful scaling. So for us, what we're doing right now is basically we're figuring out how to scale an AI team, how to scale the go-to-market team, and all of that. And how do you do that? I mean, they're obviously, maybe some of you even know better than me. I think you're learning every day, but one thing that certainly helps is talking to people that have done it before, and talking to people that are inspirational, talking to people that have big visions. So Sequoia does a good job in there. I'm really not advertising for Sequoia here, but they have been a game changer in the 5-year life of Yokoy. And one of the first things they did is they brought me to base camp. So we flew to San Francisco and we went camping. And we didn't go camping with just random people. We went camping with Elon Musk, and camping with Brian Chesky from Airbnb. You go and meet people in an informal environment that have done it before and are still doing it. And those discussions they're priceless. I don't think I could have, without the investment, I could have just gotten such input or such talks. I mean, it was not just half-an-hour sessions. We were sitting at a bonfire for the entire night and really just talking. What are the biggest challenges? How are we doing it? How is Europe different than the US? So all of that is or has been a fundamental part in the Yokoy story and the Yokoy history. And all of that has basically brought us here. And we have not only Sequoia, we have a lot of other really cool investors. And I think one of the most or more notable ones that have believed in us from early on are Swisscom. Swisscom Ventures were one of the first ones when nobody else was basically giving us money or believing in us. Swisscom back then was believing in us as more of a regional, obviously, player, knowing us from Zurich or from some of the events. So we grew out of Zurich, and I'm really, really happy that we started here because we got Swisscom, we got Six back then that helped us. We got the first customers here. It's obviously always, we're 5 Swiss people that have founded Yokoy. So it's always easier to also found in the country where you have studied, where you have already a network to basically get started. So I'm really, really happy that we did it. I'm really happy that we did it in Switzerland. And I'm really happy that we did it with what might now sound kind of stupid idea of automating expense management because of the entire journey. And as mentioned, I think the biggest learnings for us, on one hand, are the founders, the right founder team that supports and that has the mindset of going and just wanting to change something, of pivoting, being able and talking about it, and we are still talking about it today. We're doing spend management now, but what's the next big thing? What should we be doing? Should we be already doing it now, or is it too early? Should we be doing it in the future? And bringing the right people on board. Sequoia and the investors is obviously one example, but bringing the right people on board also team-wise and the partner-wise to make sure that you have people that believe into one big vision that everyone wants to go after. So these are the big learnings from me, from us, from Yokoy, and I'm really, really happy that we got, well, obviously also a bit of luck in the process always as well, but I'm really happy what has happened in the last 5 to 6 years. Now, turning into a scaling company, obviously the first parts we have mastered, but it's a long way to go, but it's an exciting way to go. And I hope with that, I mean, I know there's no copy-paste, and for anyone who is looking to start a company, there's no secret recipe, but the biggest learnings for me could hopefully help you a little in some of the points that you would take with you when you start a company. Thank you.
Thank you. It's now question time, and I do think we've had quite a few people submit some questions. The first one, what was the key takeaway from the first conversation with Elon?
The key takeaway was that we're overthinking it. Because I was talking about us becoming, or we were a software company, AI company, and then we added the cards, the payments. So I was basically complaining and saying, we are becoming less of a software company, more of a bank. So we get more regulation around it and all of that. Is that right? Should we even do that? Is that not making scaling even harder? And for him, it was absolutely clear that this is the wrong question. The right question is, what do we want to achieve with the payments, with the cards? Can we not just leverage anyone out there who already does that and just bring it into the app? And on that day, he was, I think, working at SpaceX in the morning, then he flew to San Fran, worked at X, and then in the evening he flew with his helicopter to us in the desert, to the camp. So he already worked at two of the probably most inspiring companies on that day, and he was still there basically trying to break problems down and make them as simple as possible, or basically find a way to basically get to the solution while not looking at all the restraints that are there, because they can be solved in any way, or he could help, or Sequoia could help. So kind of like getting rid of the constraints and more focusing on what do we really need to do to get the vision done.
Yeah, great answer. Simplicity is so important and so often forgotten. Second question from Demir, more of a funny one. Why didn't you call your company Yo Moi? Reads more like your money.
This is great. I mean, you should join Yokoy or Yomoe. So I'm not the one who came up with the name. Yokoy actually means side by side, and the reason why we chose it is because we want to have people working side by side with AI and software. That's the thinking behind it, because we believe in the future there will be people doing stuff, but handling exceptions, outliers. The 99% of standard cases should be covered with a software like Yokoy. So that's where we came from, but it is a good one indeed. We have never thought about it.
Yeah. Final question here from Fabienne. How big is your smallest client? From what size does it make sense to use Yokoy?
Yes. So the simple answer is a couple of 100 employees. So for small companies, they're really great tools, as mentioned, and they're also a bit older than Yokoy. There's like Pleo, you might know, unicorn out of Denmark, doing a really good job in making sure spend management is brought to the small companies. Then once you have a certain complexity of a couple of 100 employees, that's when Yokoy comes in, because if you're really built fundamentally different than a Pleo, for instance, we are covering complexity while Pleo covers basically simplicity.
Thank you so much, Philippe. That was a pleasure.
Thanks a lot for having me. Thank you.